So we're going to talk about outcomes
Yeah.
and why we should measure them.
Okay. Okay. I suppose the first thought I'd have is that we need to measure outcomes because the sort of work we do means that not all kids benefit equally, and some kids we're successful with, some kids we're less successful with, and that's how it is. It's not that the service is failing or otherwise, it's just that's the nature of the work we do, and that we need to know which kids that we're being successful with and which kids we're being less successful with, because this will help us to improve what we do. So that's one of the starting points for me.
And that, to me, absolutely captures one of the core features of AMBIT, which is that we talk about the need for respect for evidence.
Yeah.
That what we don't want is for people to be going off and doing things that make them feel good, but actually are either unsafe or are actually not helping the people we say we're helping.
Yeah.
And we can't have respect for evidence if we don't get serious about at least trying to have some measure of whether what we're doing is safe and works.
I'd add to that. It seems to me that there are some kids, however well the service is working, where they don't improve on the key things that are troubling them, and that some kids, maybe not a large number, who get worse, and we need to have ways of picking them up fairly quickly. And it seems to having an outcomes approach is saying that that has to be on the radar. If kids are not improving, we need to have ways in which we kind of can try and pick that up and think about what's happening. It seems to me outcomes helps with that.
So can you just go through some of the kind of practical things about, okay, so what does that look like? Well, I've got a service, what am I going to do?
Okay. Well, I mean, firstly, what we know about lots of efforts to do outcomes is that a lot of them don't work very well because they're far too complicated. We've got to have systems.
So keep them
got
simple.
to be very simple. So it seems to me that one of the things we need some initial baseline meaning just what's the starting point of what's the kids' current kind of difficulties, what their needs. We need just some idea of where we are at the beginning, and we need to have some method where we're just from time to time we have a look at has any of this changed,
and when you say we need a method of measuring it, that's just a questionnaire or a...
Well, I mean, from the manual, we're saying we could use the measure we've used here, which is the aim, and that would be great. If people want to use the aim, to us that would be a really good way of doing it, it seems to me. But for some, they might find that a bit kind of daunting or a bit complicated, a bit too long. So I think you can just have, you can go back to just having systems whereby in a team meeting every month you just go through all the cases and you just look at, you can just do it, run through the case and say which kids do we think are improving or no change or getting worse, and we just look, and you just have you can have something as simple as that if that's
so that and that is literally as simple as a 0, a 1, a 2 or a 3, and
yep.
There is a scale in the manual as well called
That's
the clinical global impression,
yep.
Which you can have a look in the manual and you can get hold of that, and it is literally as simple as give them a number between 0 and 4, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other sort of downsides to outcomes evaluations that would be worth just thinking about?
I think, I'm not sure. I mean, I think sometimes for teams it can feel they're being checked up on a bit, or that I think sometimes for key workers or workers they can feel they're being, they're being somehow kind of assessed in some way.
You did some very interesting stuff in North London where you did get a lot of very good practitioners to be very good at measuring their outcomes relative to most of us who struggle. And your results, if I remember rightly, were kind of encouragingly poor. Without that sounding like a criticism of your things, but I think that's reassuring in ways.
Yeah.
Do you want to just say something about
that?
Well,
I think the thing that came at the beginning when I think practitioners were very, very kind of anxious about outcomes, as if somehow their outcomes were going to be worse than everyone else in the service. I think what happened over time is that everybody discovered that actually outcomes are rather similar across the service, and I think that just reduces the anxiety quite quickly. That actually nobody has complete success with kids. Far from it. We all muddle along. Sometimes we have successful cases. Sometimes we have okay cases, and we all have one or two cases that don't work out very well. And actually, once we get the hang of that, and that becomes rather, we're able to discuss that, I think things relax. But at the beginning, I think people do feel like, oh my God, I'm going to be shown to be, I'm not as good as other people if the kids don't seem to improve or what. So I think that is a worry at the beginning. I think it just needs a bit of confidence to say actually, it's probably going to, these things don't work out, so that anyone is particularly different from someone else in the service. I think that's.
So the long and the short of it is, a team practicing something along the lines of AMBIT, we would expect them to try to be measuring some kind of outcomes. Keep it simple. Try and net it into what you're doing anyway. If you have any kind of case recording system, it should fit in with that. But try to do it methodically and systematically on all the kids, not just the ones we think we're doing really well with, because that's the way in the end we'll learn whether what we're doing is helpful or could be more helpful, and we can start to work out what works for which kids or what works for whom.
Yeah, cool. I think that's good. Okay.
Thanks.